Today we're going to look at numbers. We're going to talk about the types of numbers, the upper and lower limits, how to declare a number as a variable. We're going to look at the math operations leading up to this Stack Overflow. We'll look at printing. You'll have an assignment, and then we'll go through a summary. Here are the different types of numbers. Each number has an upper and lower bit, or upper and lower number. Each number type has a specific number of bits that it operates with. For instance, an integer operates in a 32-bit range. A long operates in a 64-bit range. A short operates in a 16-bit range. And a byte operates in a 8-bit range. These ranges force the numbers that can be assigned into a finite range. Unlike humans, a computer has to stop counting at some point because it runs out of ability to calculate. That ability is based on the number of bits that the hardware is working under. This is called architecture. It is important to know these values to prevent a stack overflow and to be able to pick the appropriate number type for your calculations. This is how you declare a variable. The initial declaration, you first give it a type. In this case, we're saying we want to use the type int. That is a 32-bit number. And then we give it a variable. In this case, we named our variable index. The more clear or explicit you name a variable as to what its function is, the easier it will be for you to program against it. Any variable that is a number that is not initially assigned a value will be implicitly assigned 0 by the language. However, you can explicitly assign a value to the variable at the time of declaration, as we see below. The order of operations in C# are very similar to standard math. Most computers, languages, and operating systems follow the same order of operations. In this case, the operations have priority on the top and the least priority on the bottom. The modulus and plus plus, minus minus, we will talk about in a little bit. Addition, the plus sign. Everybody knows the plus sign is universal. 12 plus 15 is 27. However, the assignment goes from right to left. The value that's being assigned into the variable must occur on the right. The variable is always on the left. The calculation is always on the right, as you see here. Also notice that there are semicolons after each statement. A semicolon in C# indicates that there is an end of statement or end of command. Without this, you would get a syntax error. The plus plus. Plus plus means to increment the number by 1. And in this case, if you assign index the value of 27 and then say index plus plus, what you did was increment it from 27 to 28. Index plus plus is often used in loops. We will get to loops in a later lesson. Multiplication works the same way. The asterisk is the sign for multiplication. 12 times 2 is 24. The calculation is on the right. The variable is on the left. However, what if we wanted to say 12 times 2.4? Would that work? No. This is a syntax error. You cannot assign a double to an int. What you have to do is declare the index variable as a double. Now the assignment will succeed and you will get a value of 28.8. Subtraction works just like addition. 12 minus 15 is a negative 3. Negative, negative, or minus, minus works the same thing as plus, plus. 12 minus 15 is a negative 3. Index minus, minus means that you decrement the value by 1. In this case, you decrement negative 3 would go to a negative 4. What is modulus? Modulus is a fancy way of saying remainder. I want to divide this number by another number and tell me what the remainder is. For instance, what is the remainder of 12 when I divide it by 2? That's 0 because 2 goes into 12 and even 6 times. Well, what is the remainder when I divide 13 by 2? Well, 2 goes into 13 6 times, and there's a remainder of 1. This would actually read 13 mod 2. Mod is short for modulus. Sometimes it's called modular. How about 9 modular or mod 12? Well, 12 doesn't go into 9. It goes in at 0 times, so your remainder would be 9. Division works the same way as everything else. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Well, what is 13 divided by 2? That's also 6. That's because 13 and 2 are both integers. Well, what if I said that my variable was a double? Would that give me 6.5? No, you would still get 6. Well, what if I said 13 divided by 2.0? Yes, then you would get 6.5 because at least one of the values in the equation is a decimal type, or in this case, a double. The language does not have to infer that you are trying to achieve a decimal number like in the previous two cases. What if I divide by 0? Well, if you say 13 divided by 0, you'll get a syntax error and it will not compile. .NET is smart enough to know when you're trying to explicitly throw an error. However, if you do something like this where you create two variables, assign one of them 0 as the divisor, this will throw an error at runtime. Runtime is when your computer has compiled the software and is actually running in a executable state. Try to avoid dividing by 0. There is a way to catch this, and I will show you that at a later date. Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow occurs when you increment or decrement a number outside of its boundaries. This will cause unexpected results. For instance, if I incremented the max value of an integer, it then becomes the min value of that integer. This is because you had a stack overflow. Every bit in this case was flipped to 1, including the first bit, indicating that it is a negative. You should try to avoid stack overflows. Most of you will probably never see a stack overflow unless you write an infinite loop. Printing. In C#, you cannot assign a number to a text element directly. You must use the .toString function. An example of this would be console.writeLine index.toString. You can also force leading zeros on at least 5 digits or an X number of digits. This would look like these two examples. In this case, D5 means I want 5 digits. You could also see D32, D64, D78, D3. In each case, the number would represent the number of zeros or the number of digits expected. If the number does not have that many digits, it will print leading zeros to pad it to the left. If it has that many digits, it will ignore the statement. You can also do this by putting in the number of zeros. The D5 solution or D to DX solution is a cleaner solution. However, you can do this in decimal formatting for trailing zeros. However, if you put 5 zeros at the decimal place and your number is 6 or 7 or 8 or n number after the decimal place, it will truncate it down to 5. So we talked about the number types, order of operations, some operations. We discussed Stack Overflow while it was Brad, and we looked at printing. You will have an assignment to accompany this video to help you understand numbers better. Here's additional references in the Microsoft documents to understand numbers, floating points, and precedence and order of evaluation. If you have any additional questions, please contact me through email.